Have you ever met someone for just a few seconds, only to realize they were connected to the biggest secret of your life? One quiet sentence from a young waitress stopped one of the richest men in America in his tracks. What she said next uncovered a forgotten promise, a broken family, and a story that no amount of money could ever erase. Stay with me, because this unforgettable journey proves that even the smallest act of kindness can change generations. Before we begin, welcome to Heartline Stories, where every story reminds us that kindness still has the power to heal hearts. If you enjoy emotional stories with meaningful life lessons, please like this video, subscribe to Heartline Stories, and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Now, let's begin. The evening rush had just started at a small family restaurant in Chicago. Sarah, a 23-year-old waitress, hurried from table to table with a warm smile, even though her feet ached after working 2 jobs every day. Her mother had been sick for years, and every dollar Sarah earned helped pay for medicine and rent. That night, an expensive black car stopped outside the restaurant. A tall man in a simple gray suit stepped inside. Nobody recognized him, but he was Jonathan Hayes, one of the country's most successful billionaires. He often visited places where no one knew who he was because he missed being treated like an ordinary person. Sarah greeted him with her usual smile. "Good evening, sir. Table for one?" Jonathan nodded quietly. As Sarah handed him the menu, something shiny caught her eye. On Jonathan's right hand was an old silver ring with a small blue stone. It looked almost identical to one her mother kept hidden inside a small wooden box at home. Sarah stared for just a second before speaking. "Sir, my mother has a ring exactly like yours." Jonathan slowly looked up. "What did you just say?" "My mother owns a ring just like that. Same silver band. Same blue stone. She never takes it out, but she says it reminds her of someone who changed her life." Jonathan's face turned pale. He gently removed the ring from his finger and looked at it as if seeing it for the first time in years. "What's your mother's name?" he asked softly. "Emily Carter." The billionaire's hands began to shake. More than 25 years earlier, Jonathan had been a struggling college student. One freezing winter evening, his old car had broken down outside a small town. With no money, no phone, and nowhere to go, he had knocked on the door of a tiny farmhouse. A young woman named Emily had welcomed him inside without asking for anything in return. She had shared her family's dinner, given him a warm blanket, and let him stay until morning. Before leaving, Jonathan had given Emily a matching friendship ring. "If life ever separates us," he had told her, "this ring will remind us that kindness always comes back." After graduation, Jonathan returned to thank her, but the farmhouse had been empty. Neighbors said the family had moved away after losing the property. For 25 years, he never found her again. Jonathan looked back at Sarah. "Is your mother waiting at home tonight?" Sarah nodded. "She usually is." Jonathan quietly paid the bill but left a tip far larger than the meal itself. "Would it be all right if I met her?" Sarah hesitated only for a moment before agreeing. An hour later, Jonathan stood outside a small apartment building that had seen better days. Paint peeled from the walls, and the hallway lights flickered. Sarah opened the apartment door. Inside sat her mother, wrapped in a blanket beside the window. The moment Emily saw Jonathan's face, tears filled her eyes. "It can't be," she whispered. Jonathan slowly held up his ring. Emily reached into a small wooden box beside her chair and pulled out the matching one. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. Then Emily smiled through her tears. "You kept your promise." Jonathan nodded. "So did you." Sarah stood silently, realizing she was witnessing a story that had begun long before she was born. Over cups of coffee, they spent hours sharing memories. Emily explained that after losing the farmhouse, her family had moved across several states. Years later, she married, but her husband passed away when Sarah was only 6 years old. Since then, life had been one struggle after another. Jonathan listened with regret. "I searched for you," he said. "I know," Emily replied gently. "But sometimes life sends us down different roads." Jonathan looked around the small apartment. You once gave everything you had to help a stranger. I never forgot your kindness. Emily smiled. I never expected anything in return. The next morning, Jonathan invited both women to visit his office. Sarah had never stepped inside such a beautiful building. She felt completely out of place. Jonathan welcomed them personally. Then he surprised them. I recently started a foundation that helps hardworking families rebuild their lives, he said. I'd like Sarah to become part of it. Sarah blinked in disbelief. Me? I've watched the way you treated every customer last night. You were kind even when you were exhausted. People like you are exactly who this foundation needs. Sarah couldn't believe her ears. Jonathan also arranged the best medical care for Emily, making sure every expense would be covered. Weeks turned into months. Emily's health slowly improved. Sarah left her second job and began managing community programs that help struggling families find housing, education, and employment. She discovered that helping others brought her more happiness than she had ever imagined. One afternoon, Sarah asked Jonathan a question. Why did you choose us? Jonathan smiled. I didn't choose you because you needed help. I chose you because your mother's kindness changed my life before I had anything. Without her, I might never have become the man I am today. He paused before continuing. Success doesn't begin with money. It begins with the people who believe in us when we have nothing. Years later, thousands of families had been helped through the foundation. At every annual gathering, Emily's old silver ring was displayed inside a glass case. Beneath it was a simple message. One small act of kindness can echo through generations. Visitors often asked why such an ordinary ring was so valuable. Sarah would simply smile and answer. Because it reminds us that the greatest investments are made with compassion, not wealth. As the audience applauded, Jonathan looked toward Emily and Sarah. He realized that the greatest treasure he had ever found wasn't hidden in business deals or bank accounts. It had been waiting inside a tiny restaurant, carried by a young waitress whose heart reflected her mother's kindness. And all because of one simple sentence. Sir, my mother has a ring like yours. If this story touched your heart, remember that every kind word, every helping hand, and every act of compassion has the power to travel farther than we can ever imagine. The kindness you show today may become someone else's miracle years from now. Thank you for spending time with Heartline Stories. Until next time, keep believing in kindness, keep spreading hope, and never underestimate the life-changing power of a caring heart.